I only knew love and laughter. My music, piano, laughter and happiness. Well, I am Beryl Raby. 1919, I suppose. I am healthy. I have my own teeth, top and bottom. I have no aches or pain. I could do the splits if I was asked to do it. I was born in Moonee Ponds like Edna Everage. It's true. I lived in a very happy home. Everyone laughed. My mother was always happy, playing music. Everything went around music. My mum used to play the piano, and my father would be home late from his work because he was diddling around with the men at the hotel having drinkies. She didn't like it because she never liked him drinking. She would leave his meal sitting on top of on a plate covered over on top of a pot of hot water, and he'd arrive home with all the sheets of music that the men used to bring into the shop to give him the latest jazz and all that kind of music. And she'd snatch the music off him and she'd let him sit down the passage into the kitchen. And here he was, like a humble man, just sitting on his own eating his dinner. And she'd be up in the lounge, as we used to call it, and she'd be playing all the latest jazz. Mum and Dad would chase one another up and down the passage, you know. If he said something she didn't like, you know, she'd say, "Get out of here." Nobody was quarrelling. It was good to know that we flowed along. That's about the best way to say it. It was a home of laughter, fun and love. Everyone played piano. I learned music. I went for exams. When I think of it now, I was sent to elocution to learn to speak properly. They did everything possible for me. My mother was a seamstress. She could make anything. My father was a war veteran. First World War digger. My father was a hairdresser. He had a shop, a small shop in the middle of the Melbourne shopping centre. Manchester Lane, just off Collins Street. Very heart of the city. He used to cut the hair of all the men from the Age office and all those places, because he had such a wonderful personality. It would have made a film. He used to love tap dancing, and he'd come in and he'd do dee-dum, da-da, da-da, da-diddle-dum, dee-do, da-diddle-dum, dee-do. And it was only a little shop and just enough to have a bit of tobacco and, you know, clothes there. To save money, I used to go with her on a Saturday, instead of paying someone to come in and scrub the floor of the shop. I would get on a tram and go in, and she'd scrub that floor of that shop. I went to the South Preston State School and then on to the girls' high school. Preston Girls' High School. I had a grey uniform. We had lovely uniforms when I think of it. I used to talk and laugh too much. Beryl, Burmeister, sit down. I had a brother and he was 6 years younger than I. My mother made all our clothes. She even made my shirts, the shirts that my brother wore. But there was never anything that we knew, but nothing but happiness and laughter. Now, that's us. Beryl and Billy. But he was a real devil. he'd wag it from school, and I'd travel with my mother around the streets looking for him. She used to say when she was talking about him, she said he was a fair bugger, that's what she used to say he was. And they'd see us coming and they'd sing out, "Are you looking for Billy, Mrs. Burmeister?" I used to hate it. I'd be crying, I'd be saying, "Mummy, where do you think he is? Oh, Mummy, where is he?" And she'd shout at me and say, "Go home, go home." She was so uptight that she couldn't stand me bawling because no one could find Billy Burmeister. We'd go to film on a Saturday morning in the city. There was always a special type of film to suit the age group. And we'd be dressed up to catch the Preston tram into the city, walking along, and they'd be singing out, "Are you looking for Billy, Mrs. Burmeister?" Oh, and I'd be there, that's a shame. Along the years rolled, and I used to work at Manton's, a store in the city, and I was a sales girl there. We had to wear black. No jewellery, black clothes. You look like a stylish clothes, but there'd be no jewellery or nail polish. We had to sell. You just didn't stand around and not bother to sell. And as long as you sold the amount of money for the month or whatever length, you were kept employed. And we used to all stand outside the lift, and when the women that got out of the lift on the floor of the fashion floor, we had the girls, the mannequins, wearing the clothes, and we'd all gather around the lift as it came up on our floor. And when we saw the women getting out that used to say, "I'll think about it, I'll come back another time, dear," we'd all really knock one another over, running away from her. That meant we were using time, wasting, instead of a woman that really meant to buy something that helped us keep our work in the store. That's how we worked. They were pink. They were dusty pink flowers around the top of the hat. That's me. But that is me, yeah. And actually, I think I got the same teeth. Max, his name was Max. Actually, there was a big store on the corner of Burke and Collins Street. He worked there behind the counter in menswear. And along comes the war. He was in the Middle East and Italy in the Air Force. I never saw him for 4 years. And while he was away, I turned into what I called a bad woman. I became sophisticated. I still loved him. I still expected that when he came home, we would get married. Most of the men were at the war in our age group. And I used to go out with the women. And they were all from the store, and I'd be like a junior. I'd tag along with them. And see, I'd be drinking and smoking. And my father used to bring the cigarettes home from his shop. And my mum and I had he'd go to bed, he got sick of us, and he'd go to bed. And my mum and I would just sit over a little fireplace, about that big. And she'd sit one side and smoke, and I'd sit there, and the two of us, my poor dad, we didn't care where he was. We loved him dearly. Fiancé, if you like to say, came back safe from the war. It was the day he's coming home, and I'm scared out of my wits because I had to tell him I was a bad woman, smoked. I had to tell him I was drinking, and I had to come and confess I was a bad woman. He told me he would have drank methylated spirits if he could have got it. But we still kept our love with each other. Imagine not seeing someone you love dearly and the 4 years have gone by and you go and look and see him arriving in his uniform. You know, it's just amazing. Oh, it's the day he arrived back. That was a rosy coloured pink linen suit, you know, with a skirt and a jacket. And that's Max. And it's the first time that I saw him after 4 years. Anyone in Melbourne knew my husband because he had a brain. He became the managing director, though, of the Leviathan stores in the city. He was known as the king of Bourke Street. He was a yes and no man. He didn't get very far with it. You could say Max was in charge of Melbourne. He had that strength, that personality, and if everyone got in his way, you know, they'd be squashed. He ruled Melbourne. All the directors of Myer and all those places pandied around him because he more or less ruled Bourke Street with his brain and fashion. Manufacturers would crawl around at Christmas time. We'd have boxes coming with drinks in, all Christmas presents, you know, and the manufacturers they were riding around in the best cars and we couldn't afford a car. We probably had a tram fare to get into the city. They had all the money. We never had the money, but my husband wore the best. We had not enough money to go round to keep my husband clothed and socialised. I used to have hardly any clothes. We had hardly any money to put on my back and he'd be walking around, stalking around in the best suit and I'd have something that was dragged together. But we got there. He came first in everything. I'm just madly in love with him and when I think of it. Oh. Well, you see, I worked in this store, Manton's, I've spoken about. See, because I worked in the wedding advisory, I had all the gowns and this was all beaded, you know. And this girl was my husband's sister, like she became my sister-in-law. This other girl was my best girlfriend. Oh, these girls have died since then, and I'm still travelling along, singing a song. Side by side. Don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we'll travel the road, sharing our load, side by side. I had two boys, Mac and Jeff. Mac lives around the corner. And Jeff's our ambassador in Beijing. Those boys were wonderful. We'll be the same as we started, just traveling along, singing a song side by side. Oh, I love cleaning the house and polishing the silver. That all got polished, and I love my garden. I'm scared. I can't keep the garden going, you know. Well, get somebody. Just go and get somebody. See, I'd be afraid of the money it'd cost to pay people. He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy.